Sometimes the battle doesn't end on the battlefield. It follows you home, silent and unseen. 20 doctors stood in grim silence around the hospital bed, their faces pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. The monitor beside them beeped erratically, counting down the final hours of Officer Ethan Blackwood. Outside, a summer storm lashed against the windows of Massachusetts General Hospital, mirroring the chaos inside his failing body. "We've tried everything," whispered Dr. Thompson, shaking her head. "Prepare the end-of-life papers." In the corner, a German shepherd's ears suddenly pricked up. Max had been motionless for days, keeping vigil beside his master's bed. Now his nose twitched violently, reacting to something unseen. The dog rose, muscles tensing beneath his tan and black coat. The night nurse stepped forward to stop him, but Max was already tugging at Ethan's duffel bag, teeth clamped around something metallic that glinted under the sterile lights. "What's he got there?" Dr. Harper asked, his weathered hands reaching for the object. The old military doctor's eyes widened in recognition. "Dear God," he breathed, "that's not just a shell casing." Pause for narrator transition. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know which city you're watching from. Now let's continue the story. Officer Ethan Blackwood was no stranger to battle. At 38, the decorated Boston police officer carried both the visible and invisible scars of 2 tours in Afghanistan. His square jaw, weathered by desert suns and New England winters, rarely softened into a smile these days, except around Max, his 6-year-old German shepherd and former military working dog. They had found each other amidst the chaos of war. During a routine patrol outside Kandahar in 2017, their convoy hit an IED. Ethan was thrown clear, but Max's handler didn't survive. Amid the gunfire and smoke, Ethan and the frightened shepherd forged an unbreakable bond, one born from shared trauma and mutual rescue. When Ethan's tour ended, a mountain of paperwork and a sympathetic commanding officer ensured Max returned stateside with him. The Boston Police Department quickly recognized Ethan's experience and Max's elite training. Together, they became part of the K-9 unit, a formidable team respected by colleagues and feared by criminals alike. Their apartment in Dorchester was small but functional, sparsely decorated except for Ethan's service medals and Max's commendations, framed side by side. It wasn't just a home, it was a sanctuary for 2 soldiers who had seen too much. Ethan's partner, Patrick Wilson, had been with him for 3 years. At 35, Patrick was everything Ethan wasn't: talkative, open-hearted, a devoted husband and father of 2 young daughters who adored their Uncle Ethan and spoiled Max with backyard treats. Patrick was also the only one who truly understood Ethan's struggles, the nightmares, the hypervigilance, the 1,000-yard stare that sometimes lingered even in moments of peace. "Some men come back from war," Patrick's wife, Jennifer, once said softly, "but the war never really leaves them." Ethan was one of those men. His record showed exemplary conduct, but his personnel file carried notes of emotional distance and difficulty connecting. Only with Max did he seem truly at peace. Dr. William Harper understood that bond better than most. At 70, the retired military doctor had seen 3 wars and countless broken soldiers. His silver hair and kind eyes hid a sharp mind, honed by decades of studying the effects of combat on both body and soul. Now volunteering at Massachusetts General, he had become a quiet legend, the doctor who took cases others couldn't explain. Beside him stood Dr. Rebecca Thompson, 50 years old and head of emergency medicine. A product of Johns Hopkins, she represented modern medicine's precision and protocol, a woman who lived by charts, scans, and science. Harper's old-school intuition often clashed with her data-driven methods, yet there was mutual respect between them. And then there was Robert Wagner. At 40, the former field medic had once been among the best surgeons in Afghanistan. His hands had saved dozens of lives under impossible conditions, until one mission changed everything. A split-second decision, Ethan Blackwood's subsequent report, and Wagner's military career ended in disgrace. What few knew was that Wagner had since found work in a secretive research unit, one rumored to explore the limits of human resilience and unconventional warfare. 3 lives, separate paths, bound by invisible threads of fate. The call came at 2:17 a.m. on a muggy July night. Patrick's voice crackled over the radio, thick with panic. "Officer down! Officer down at Franklin Park. I need an ambulance now." Ethan had been on routine patrol with Max, checking the perimeter of a community center that had received vandalism threats. One minute, he was walking calmly beside his dog. The next, Patrick found him convulsing on the wet grass, Max whining and circling frantically. The EMTs arrived within minutes. Ethan's vitals were erratic, blood pressure dropping, heart rate spiking, pupils dilated and unresponsive. There were no injuries, no blood, no trauma. Just a healthy officer suddenly fighting for his life. "Has he taken anything?" "Medication?" the paramedic asked. "Nothing." Patrick replied, climbing into the ambulance with Max in tow. He doesn't even take aspirin. Protocol forbade animals in ambulances, but one look at Max's unrelenting eyes made the medics relent. At Massachusetts General, chaos turned clinical. Dr. Thompson immediately ordered a toxicology panel, urological consult, and cardiac workup. As a precaution, she added heavy metal screening. No obvious cause, she murmured. Physically fit, no chronic conditions, perfect health 4 months ago. Patrick paced the waiting room, Max sitting alert at his feet, eyes locked on the ICU doors. He's going to make it. Patrick whispered to himself. He's too stubborn not to. By dawn, Ethan's condition had worsened. 20 specialists, each with their own theories, examined him. None could find a cause. His symptoms mimicked poisoning or nerve agent exposure. Yet all tests came back clean. It's as if his body is under attack from something we can't detect, Dr. Thompson admitted. Captain James Reynolds, a 30-year veteran of the force, ordered a full investigation. We treat this as a potential attack until proven otherwise, he said. Officers took shifts guarding Ethan's room, while colleagues brought food for Patrick and treats for Max, who refused to eat. By afternoon, Dr. Harper arrived. Mind if I take a look at his chart? He asked. Dr. Thompson hesitated. We have our best specialists on it, Harper smiled gently. And I've seen things most of your specialists have only read about. Humor an old man. Reluctantly, she handed him the file. Harper read silently, frowning. Have you considered environmental toxins? We've tested for everything, she replied. Still, he murmured, something doesn't fit. He stepped into the ICU, Max watching him closely as he examined Ethan's still body, the faint rise and fall of his chest, the rhythmic hum of the machines. His symptoms resemble certain military compounds, Harper whispered. But they'd show up before he could finish. Alarms blared. Ethan's heart rate spiked. Seizing again, a nurse shouted. BP dropping. Pulse irregular. Dr. Thompson rushed forward. Start continuous EEG monitoring now. For 12 hours, the medical team fought a losing battle. By midnight, Ethan's body was failing, and no one knew why. Patrick stayed beside him, exhausted but unyielding. Max never moved, occasionally resting his head near Ethan's lifeless hand. He's never acted like this, Patrick whispered to Harper. Even in war, he stayed calm. It's like he knows something we don't. Harper studied the dog thoughtfully. Sometimes they do. My grandfather used to say, trust a dog's nose before a man's word. They sense things that we can't. The storm outside wasn't the only one raging that night. Inside the hospital, another was about to break. Outside, the summer tempest that had loomed all day finally erupted. Rain lashed against the glass. Lightning fractured the Boston skyline, and thunder rolled like a distant drum of war. Inside Ethan's room, machines kept their cold vigil, blinking, humming, measuring every faltering heartbeat and breath with merciless precision. By morning, Dr. Thompson faced what she had dreaded through the night. She gathered her exhausted team in the conference room, the walls plastered with Ethan's test results. We're missing something fundamental, she admitted, her voice tight. A healthy 38-year-old doesn't just start dying without cause. There has to be an explanation. Dr. Wilson, the neurologist, tapped a screen showing Ethan's EEG. Brain activity suggests toxic exposure, but we can't identify the toxin. The pattern doesn't match anything known. Could it be synthetic? Dr. Harper asked. Something engineered to slip past detection? Thompson shook her head. That's the stuff of spy novels, Dr. Harper. Not Boston streets, but the seed of doubt had been planted. What if this wasn't an illness or accident? What if someone had targeted Officer Ethan Blackwood? As theories collided, the door opened. Captain Reynolds stepped in, rainwater still clinging to his coat. We've been combing through Blackwood's recent cases in history. Nothing stands out except one thing: a former military colleague, Robert Wagner. They served together in Afghanistan. Wagner was dishonorably discharged after an incident involving Ethan's testimony. He moved to Boston a month ago. The name meant nothing to most, but Harper's eyes darkened. Wagner, the medic accused of abandoning his post? Reynolds nodded. You know of him? By reputation. Brilliant field surgeon, terrible at following orders. There were rumors after his discharge. Private research contracts, classified projects. Nothing verified. The room went still. The idea sounded unthinkable, yet in that silence, everyone felt it might be true. Back in Ethan's room, Max, the usually composed German shepherd, had grown restless. He paced between the bed and the small closet where Ethan's duffel bag was stored. When Patrick returned from a short break, he frowned. What is it, boy? What's wrong? Max whined, pawing at the closet door. Patrick opened it, and the dog lunged inside, dragging out Ethan's duffel bag. With astonishing dexterity, Max unzipped it with his teeth and nosed through the contents. Hey, stop that! Patrick froze. The dog emerged holding a brass shell casing, glinting under the fluorescent lights. Max placed it on the floor, then backed away, whining softly. The gesture was so deliberate that a chill crept up Patrick's spine. Dr. Harper, he shouted. "You need to see this." 3 hours later, across the city, FBI agents entered Robert Wagner's South Boston apartment and found an obsession-turned-shrine. Photos of Ethan lined the walls, patrol routes, daily routines, even pictures of him and Max at the dog park. But the real horror was behind a false wall, a secret laboratory packed with chemical gear. "This isn't amateur work," said Agent Melissa Carter through her hazmat suit. "He's been planning this for years." Back at the FBI field office, the shell casing was analyzed. Traces of a sophisticated nerve agent confirmed Harper's worst fears, a compound engineered to evade standard toxicology. "It's ingenious in its cruelty," Harper said grimly. "The casing released microscopic doses when warmed by body heat. Ethan carried it for weeks, slowly poisoning himself." Patrick slammed a fist on the table. "Why? What happened between them?" Reynolds slid over a file. 2017 Kandahar. Wagner was the medic on a high-risk extraction. He abandoned his post, chasing what he claimed was a fleeing high-value target. There was no target, only civilians. 3 soldiers went down. 1 died waiting for care. Ethan filed the report that ended Wagner's career. Patrick shook his head. "One death doesn't justify this kind of madness. There's more," Reynolds continued. "Wagner's journals show an unhealthy fixation. He admired Ethan, personally. His court-martial wasn't just professional ruin. It felt like rejection." Silence filled the room. Harper exhaled slowly. That level of obsession. "He didn't plan this alone." Agent Carter nodded. "He worked briefly for a contractor called Reinhardt Solutions, specialists in non-conventional warfare. Lots of dark money. Back at the hospital, Ethan's condition was critical. The identified toxin allowed Dr. Thompson's team to attempt a targeted antidote, but his body was failing. Max never left his side, except for brief forced walks. The dog's nerves were frayed. He'd stare at corners, growl at empty air, or jolt awake to check on Ethan. It's like he senses something we can't." Patrick murmured. "In Vietnam," Harper said quietly, "we had a medic who swore his dog could smell death. Hours before a patient turned, the dog would get uneasy. Almost on cue, Max rose and pressed against Ethan's bed, whining. Moments later, monitors screamed. Ethan's heart rate plummeted. Doctors rushed in, fighting to stabilize him. "How did he know?" one nurse whispered. Harper just nodded. "Old wisdom sometimes beats new science." Morning brought worse news. Agent Carter entered, face grim. "Wagner's vanished. He emptied a storage unit yesterday at no flight, no train. He's still in the city. He won't stop," Patrick said. "Security's doubled," Reynolds assured. "He won't reach Ethan." Thompson entered, pale with exhaustion. "We've isolated the compound. A VX derivative engineered to vanish after breakdown. The treatment's begun, but the damage may already be done." Patrick's phone buzzed. "The FBI found something else in Wagner's unit," he said. "They want us at the field office." Inside the unit, agents found identical shell casings and dossiers on 5 other soldiers tied to Wagner's disgrace. "He wasn't just after Ethan," Carter said. "He had a hit list. Among the files was a photo. Ethan in fatigues, arm around a German shepherd identical to Max except for the eyes." "That's not Max," Patrick whispered. "Tag says Rex." Later, decrypted files revealed a recorded message. Wagner speaking calmly to camera. "Blackwood's dog Rex died saving him. I've built the perfect replacement. Identical in look, trained in obedience, designed to play his part. When the poison takes hold, the dog will discover it. Too late. His final thoughts will be failure and betrayal." Patrick's blood ran cold. "You're saying Max is a plant?" "Not entirely," Carter said. "Maybe Wagner replaced the dog, but Harper's right. The loyalty we've seen can't be faked." Harper nodded. "You can train behavior, not devotion. Whatever Wagner planned, Max's bond with Ethan broke it. That's why he found the casing early. But then Max began to weaken. Dr. Thompson confirmed the unthinkable. He, too, was poisoned. "Repeated exposure," she said. "He's been licking the shell casing, absorbing the toxin himself." Patrick's voice cracked. "He's been taking the poison for Ethan." Thunder cracked outside, rattling the windows as doctors fought to save both man and dog. The antidote arrived by military helicopter, slicing through the storm. "We're fighting 2 battles," Harper said. 12 hours, that's all we have." Patrick glanced at Max, the dog trembling but still keeping watch. "You can't engineer loyalty," Harper murmured. "You can't program love." The lights flickered, then darkness. Emergency generators kicked in, but a whisper of dread moved through the hospital. "Just the storm," a nurse said. Harper's instincts screamed otherwise. "Check every system." Moments later, a technician shouted, "The oxygen lines! They've been tampered with." Agent Carter's eyes went wide. "He's here. Wagner's in the hospital." Reynolds barked orders. "Lock it down! No one in or out." In Ethan's room, Max suddenly lifted his head, a low growl vibrating from deep in his chest. His eyes locked on the ventilation grate near the ceiling. Patrick drew his gun. "Everyone out," he ordered, voice low and steady. In the quiet hum of the hospital's isolation wing, the line between loyalty and vengeance was about to be drawn in blood and smoke. Dr. Thompson hesitated, her voice trembling. "We can't move him, Ethan." But before she could finish, Harper cut in sharply, positioning himself between Ethan's bed and the ventilation shaft. "Then we stay. Everyone else clear the room now." The nurses obeyed, hearts pounding as the last footsteps faded down the hall. For a heartbeat silence until a metallic clink shattered it. The ventilation grate swung open, slow and deliberate. A small canister dropped to the floor, hissing, releasing a swirling cloud of white gas that filled the air like ghostly mist. "Gas!" Patrick shouted, lunging forward. He tried to grab the canister, but the vapor spread too fast. His eyes watered, his throat burned. He coughed violently, knees hitting the tile. Harper, reacting faster than anyone expected from a man his age, slammed his palm on the emergency override. Massive fans roared to life, sucking the haze toward the vents, but the damage was already done. Patrick collapsed, dizzy and disoriented. Through the fading haze, a dark figure dropped from the open duct, boots hitting the floor with a thud. He rose slowly, a gas mask hiding his face. In his gloved hand, a small black case. "Dr. Harper," the intruder said, voice distorted through the mask. "I didn't expect to find you here. This complicates things." Harper's voice was hoarse but steady. "It's over, Wagner. The FBI knows everything. The modified shell casing. The dog switch. All of it." The man removed his mask, revealing Robert Wagner, older now, bitterness carved deep into every line of his face. His eyes, cold and haunted, met Harper's without flinching. "Knowledge without understanding is meaningless," he murmured. "They know what I did, not why." He placed the case on a nearby table and opened it with slow precision. Inside lay syringes and vials, each gleaming under the harsh hospital lights. "This was never about killing Ethan," Wagner continued. "Death would be mercy. I wanted him to feel what I did. Betrayal by someone he trusted, followed by the slow ruin of everything he loved." Patrick, barely able to breathe, rasped out, "The dog. You replaced his dog." Wagner's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Rex died saving Ethan in Afghanistan. Took the bullet meant for him. It was almost too easy to assign Max in his place. Same look, same breed, but trained my way." Harper steadied himself against the wall. "You failed. Max bonded with Ethan. He saved him." Wagner's eyes darkened. "An unfortunate miscalculation. Dogs are predictable, ruled by instinct. I never imagined the mutt would develop affection." He picked up a syringe, flicking it. "No matter. This will finish what I started." "What's in it?" Harper demanded. "The final phase," Wagner said calmly. "A compound that cancels your antidote. Ethan dies and you can't stop it, just as I couldn't stop the army from destroying me." He moved toward the bed, but a low growl cut through the room. Max, trembling but alive, pulled himself up, teeth bared in defiance. The German shepherd's stance was shaky yet unyielding. Wagner froze, almost admiring. "Even now, he defends him. That's what you'll never understand," Harper said. "Loyalty isn't programmed. It's earned." Wagner's attention flickered for a split second. Enough. Patrick lunged, tackling him to the ground. The syringe clattered away. Max surged forward, clamping his jaws around Wagner's wrist. The room erupted into chaos. Equipment crashed. Alarms blared. The heavy door rattled as officers outside tried to break through. Wagner fought like a cornered animal, kicking, shouting, clawing for his weapon. No one noticed the faint change on Ethan's monitor until the steady line spiked. His fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered. Wagner tore free, kicking Max aside. The dog yelped but rose again, staggering toward him. "Enough," Wagner shouted, drawing a pistol. "This ends now." He aimed at Max, hatred burning in his eyes. "You should have obeyed your training, you worthless—" "Wagner." The voice was weak but unmistakable. Every head turned. Ethan Blackwood was awake, forcing himself upright despite the tubes in his arms. His face was ghost pale, but his eyes were fire. Wagner froze. "Impossible. The toxin levels were being neutralized," Harper said, seizing the moment. He kicked the pistol from Wagner's hand. "We designed a counteragent for your poison." Wagner lunged, but Max, finding one last surge of strength, intercepted him. The dog knocked Wagner flat. Teeth bared inches from his throat. The door finally burst open as officers stormed in. Shouting commands, they pulled Wagner away, his screams echoing down the corridor. Ethan's gaze never left Max. The dog limped to his side, laying his head on Ethan's arm. "Hey, buddy," Ethan whispered, voice trembling. "You did good." Dr. Thompson and the medical team rushed in, stabilizing both man and dog. Ethan's vitals were fragile. Max's pulse was fading. "They both need constant care," Thompson said. "We moved them together." Hours later, in a secured ward under FBI protection, Ethan and Max lay side by side, each fighting for life. Between their beds, only inches apart, Ethan could reach out and brush his hand through the dog's fur. Every faint thump of Max's tail was an answer. "I'm still here." But beyond that fragile peace, the storm brewed again. Wagner's words lingered like poison. In the cafeteria, Harper and Patrick sat in silence. "Do we tell him?" Patrick asked quietly. That Max wasn't really his dog? Harper sighed. Facts don't always equal truth. Whatever Wagner intended, that bond is real. Max's loyalty was never programmed. It was chosen. Back in the ward, the world was quiet except for the rain against the windows. Ethan's breathing steadied. Max's IV dripped rhythmically. Man and dog. Two survivors linked by trust deeper than science could ever measure. As dawn broke, pale sunlight crept across their beds. Hope was fragile, but it was alive. Then Dr. Thompson's quiet words shattered the calm. The toxin's damaging Max's heart, she told Harper and Patrick. He may not make it through the night. Through the glass, Ethan stirred, reaching weakly toward his dog's still body. His whisper barely carried through the room. Stay with me, buddy. Please. And as the monitors hummed and the storm outside faded into silence, only one question remained. Would love be enough to save them both? In the quiet glow of morning, when hope and heartbreak walk hand in hand, a dying dog's shallow breaths held more power than any miracle science could explain. Dr. Thompson entered the room with the veterinary specialist who had been consulting on Max's case. One look at their faces told Ethan everything. The hope he'd clung to was slipping away. We've exhausted our options, Dr. Thompson said softly. The next few hours will be critical. If he makes it through the day, there's hope. If not, she didn't need to finish. Ethan nodded, eyes glistening. He understood all too well what wasn't being said. I'd like to take him outside, he said suddenly, voice trembling. Just for a little while. He loves being outdoors. The medical team exchanged wary glances. Officer Blackwood, you're still recovering yourself, Thompson began gently. And Max's condition? If he's dying, Ethan interrupted, his voice cracking on the word. Then let him feel the sun one more time. Please. Something in his plea pierced through the sterile logic of the professionals around him. After a brief, silent consultation, they agreed to a short supervised visit to the hospital's secure courtyard. With careful coordination, Max was transferred onto a specialized gurney, while Ethan was helped into a wheelchair. FBI agents secured the perimeter, ensuring no unauthorized access. And then at last, in the soft morning light, man and dog were reunited beneath an open sky. The courtyard was small but alive. Trimmed grass, flowering plants, and a faint hum of bees. A peaceful oasis amid the hum of machines and the sterile scent of antiseptic. Ethan asked to sit on a wooden bench. With help, he lifted Max's upper body into his lap, cradling the shepherd's head against his chest. Remember our first patrol together in Boston? He whispered, stroking the dog's ear just the way Max liked. You were so alert. So eager. The others couldn't believe how fast you adapted to city life after Afghanistan. Max's eyes, dulled by pain and medication, fixed on Ethan's face. His breathing was shallow but steady, as if every ounce of his remaining strength was devoted to staying present. Dr. Harper watched from a respectful distance, emotion tightening his chest. In all his years, 3 wars, countless casualties, he had never seen a connection so pure. It transcended science, circumstance, and even betrayal. Whatever Robert Wagner had intended with his cruel experiment, he had accidentally created something beautiful, a bond stronger than programming, stronger than death itself. As the morning wore on, Max's condition worsened. His breathing grew uneven. His muscles trembled. The veterinarian checked his vitals every hour, shaking her head slightly each time. By mid-morning, Patrick arrived, summoned by Dr. Harper. He found Ethan still sitting on the bench, murmuring softly to Max, recounting memories as if words alone could anchor the dog to life. How's he doing? Patrick asked quietly, settling beside them. Ethan didn't look up. Not good. They don't think he'll make it through the day. Patrick placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, offering the only comfort he could, silent presence. They told me about Wagner's plan, Ethan said after a long pause. About Rex, about how Max was sent to spy on me, to betray me. His voice cracked. But he didn't, Patrick reminded him gently. He saved you instead. Ethan nodded, tears streaming freely now. That's what makes it so. I don't even have words, Patrick. This dog was literally programmed to hurt me. And instead he's dying because he tried to protect me. Patrick's voice softened. That's love. Real love always chooses protection over programming. As noon approached, Max's breathing became dangerously erratic. The veterinarian warned Ethan that the end was near. Hospital staff discreetly brought out a privacy screen, creating a sheltered space in the courtyard, a sacred corner for goodbye. Ethan held Max closer, pressing his face into the dog's fur. It's okay, buddy, he whispered brokenly. You don't have to fight anymore. You've done enough. More than enough? Max's eyes fluttered open. With visible effort, he lifted his head, looking directly at Ethan. Then, in one last act of love, he licked Ethan's cheek, a weak, trembling motion that drew gasps from the staff nearby. I love you too, Ethan sobbed. More than you'll ever know. Max's head fell back against his chest. His breaths came slower, then slower still. The veterinarian stepped forward, stethoscope trembling in her hand. Just as she was about to confirm what everyone feared, Dr. Harper's phone rang. The sound sliced through the stillness. He stepped away to answer, then returned, eyes wide with disbelief. "The lab results," he said quickly. "They just came in. The toxin Wagner used. It behaves differently in dogs. It mimics organ failure, but it's actually triggering a kind of suspended animation." The team froze. "Suspended animation?" Thompson echoed. Harper nodded, urgency sharpening his tone. "Max isn't dying. His body is shutting down to protect itself. The toxin caused it, but it's reversible, if we keep him stable." The veterinarian's eyes widened. "It's possible. Some animals enter torpor when critically stressed. If this toxin triggered that response," Ethan's voice trembled. "So he can come back?" "If his system endures," Harper replied. "We've never seen it before. It's risky, but yes, there's a chance." The courtyard transformed from a scene of mourning to one of desperate purpose. Max was rushed back into intensive care. The team worked tirelessly, following Harper's hastily designed protocol to support Max's vitals without disrupting the protective state. Ethan refused to leave. "I'll be here when he wakes up," he insisted. "He was there for me. I won't let him wake up alone." Hours crawled by. Monitors beeped faintly, a fragile rhythm of life. Max's heart rate and body temperature dipped to near-death levels but never stopped completely. "Now we wait," Harper told him. "His body is fighting in the only way it knows how." Night fell. The hospital quieted. Ethan, pale and exhausted, held Max's paw and whispered through the darkness stories of old patrols, promises of walks in the park, the sound of waves they would someday chase again. Then, sometime before dawn, a miracle. The monitor flickered. Max's temperature rose by half a degree. His breathing evened out. His tail twitched, barely but undeniably. "He's coming back." The veterinarian breathed, tears in her eyes. Ethan felt the faintest pressure against his hand. "That's it, buddy," he whispered, voice cracking with emotion. "Keep fighting. Come back to me." And as the first rays of sunrise painted the hospital room in gold, Max's eyes fluttered open. They were unfocused at first, then locked onto Ethan's face. Recognition, devotion, love. His tail thumped weakly against the bed. The medical staff stood in silent awe, witnessing what they would later call a miracle of will. But Ethan knew it wasn't just biology that had saved him. It was something deeper, the same love that had overpowered Wagner's programming, a loyalty powerful enough to defy death itself. "Welcome back," Ethan whispered, forehead resting against Max's. "I knew you wouldn't leave me." 3 days later, Dr. Harper entered Ethan's room with a sealed envelope. "DNA results," he said softly. "You should see this." Ethan hesitated before opening it. The report confirmed Wagner's words. Max wasn't Rex, but he wasn't just a replacement. He was Rex's brother. Ethan stared at Max, wonder softening his face. "You and Rex, brothers," Harper nodded. "Wagner's plan was cruelly poetic. He wanted Rex's brother to destroy you. But he didn't understand. The same blood that gave Rex his courage runs through Max, too." Ethan smiled through tears. "Then maybe loyalty isn't something you can train. Maybe it's something you're born with." And as Max rested his head on Ethan's lap, his tail tapping a slow rhythm against the bed, it was clear. What began as a weapon of vengeance had become the purest form of redemption. "The doctors say I'll make a full recovery," Ethan told Patrick as they sat together on his small porch, watching Max cautiously explore the backyard. "Maybe a few lingering effects, occasional tremors, some memory issues, but nothing that'll keep me off the force." "And Max?" Patrick asked quietly. Ethan's expression softened as he looked toward his dog. Max's movements were still tentative, but growing stronger each day. "The vet says he'll need more time. The toxin did a number on his system, but she thinks he'll be able to work again. Maybe not full field duty right away, but at least training in light patrol." Patrick leaned back thoughtfully. "You know," he said, "there's an opening in the K9 training division. Less physically demanding than street patrol, but you'd both still be on active duty. Might be a good transition while you finish healing." Ethan considered that. Teaching had never been part of his plan, but the past few weeks had changed his outlook on a lot of things. Maybe sharing what he and Max had gone through could help other handlers and their dogs. "I'll think about it," he said finally. That night, alone in his apartment for the first time since the poisoning, Ethan faced the true test of his recovery. The nightmares that had haunted him since Afghanistan had grown more vivid in the hospital, now featuring Wagner's vengeful face alongside the explosions and screams from combat. As he prepared for bed, Ethan found himself checking the locks again and again, scanning corners and closets, hyper-aware of shadows that didn't move. Max watched silently, his perceptive eyes tracking every flicker of unease. When Ethan finally lay down, Max hopped up beside him. Normally that wasn't allowed. But tonight was different. Tonight, they both needed comfort. "Just this once," Ethan murmured as Max curled up beside him, a steady warmth in the darkness. Hours later, when the nightmares came, it was Max who woke him, not with barking, but with gentle pressure against Ethan's chest, grounding him in the present before the terror could take hold. Ethan wrapped his arms around his dog. breathing in that familiar scent of loyalty and safety. "You're not just a replacement," he whispered. "You never were. You're your own miracle." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Dr. Harper stood on Ethan's porch, dressed in civilian clothes, holding a small box. "I don't usually make house calls anymore," Harper said as Ethan invited him in. "But this seemed like something best done in person." He placed the box on the kitchen table and carefully opened it. "While you were recovering, I reached out to your old commanding officer in Afghanistan. Thought you might want to know more about Rex." From the box, Harper lifted a worn leather collar with military tags still attached, along with a sealed envelope. "These belong to Rex," he explained. "Your CO kept them, thinking you might want them someday when the grief wasn't so raw." Ethan's hands trembled as he picked up the collar. His fingers traced the embossed name and faded service number. "I couldn't," he said quietly. "After he died, I couldn't bear to have any reminders. It was too painful. Grief has its own timeline," Harper said gently. "Sometimes we need distance before we can embrace the memories." Max stepped closer, sniffing the collar curiously. Then, with a soft whine, he pressed his head against Ethan's leg, as if he somehow understood. "The envelope contains photos and Rex's complete service record," Harper continued. "Your CO wanted you to know that Rex received the Navy and Marine Corps medal posthumously. His actions saved not only you, but 3 other men that day." Ethan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The grief still felt fresh even after all these years, and now, with the knowledge of Wagner's manipulation, it was tinged with anger and sorrow both. "I also found something else," Harper said, reaching back into the box. He pulled out a faded photograph, a litter of German Shepherd puppies, 8 tiny black and tan bundles of fur nestled together. "This was from the military working dog breeding program," he explained. "Rex and Max's litter." Ethan stared at the photo, trying to guess which of the identical pups would grow up to be Rex and which would become Max. It was impossible to tell. "Wagner thought he was clever," Harper said, using one brother to betray the handler of another. But he didn't understand what he was really creating. Max didn't just look like Rex, he was part of him. Same bloodline, same instincts. When the moment came to choose between training and nature, nature won. The revelation hit Ethan with both pain and comfort. He had lost Rex, but through a twisted path of vengeance, fate had given him Rex's brother, not a replacement. "Continuation, thank you," Ethan said softly, meeting Harper's kind gaze. Harper smiled faintly. "I'm just an old doctor who's seen enough war to recognize true healing when it happens." He nodded toward Max, who lay quietly at Ethan's feet. "What you two have, that's the real medicine. Everything else is just science catching up." After Harper left, Ethan sat on the floor, surrounded by Rex's collar, the photos, and the service records. Max lay beside him, ever watchful, as Ethan sifted through years of buried grief. "You didn't replace him," Ethan said, stroking Max's ears. "No one could, but you carried his legacy in ways Wagner never intended. You turned revenge into redemption." That evening, for the first time in years, Ethan hung a photograph on his wall, the image of the 8 German Shepherd puppies who had once shared a litter. Beside it, he placed Rex's posthumous medal and Max's commendation for finding a missing child the year before. 2 brothers, 2 heroes. 2 chapters of one story. When Patrick visited the next day, he noticed the display immediately. "Finally bringing the past into the present?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "I spent years trying to separate everything. War over there, civilian life here. But it doesn't work like that. It's all one journey." Patrick studied the puppy photograph. "Amazing to think Wagner's revenge plan actually gave you back a piece of Rex. That's the thing about hate," Ethan replied, watching Max nap peacefully in a patch of sunlight. "It's never as powerful as it thinks it is. Wagner tried to use my bond with dogs as a weapon, but he only made it stronger." The DNA report confirming Max and Rex's relationship was added to the case file against Wagner. For the prosecution, it proved premeditation. But for Ethan, it proved something deeper, that the bond he'd felt with Max wasn't misplaced grief. It was real. As autumn painted Boston in fiery colors, Ethan and Max continued their recovery. The tremors faded. Max's stamina returned. Together, they walked farther each day, rebuilding their partnership step by step. Wagner's case moved through the courts, each new revelation darker than the last. His network of disgruntled ex-military men had been larger than anyone guessed, but thanks to the evidence he left behind, it was dismantled before more lives were lost. Through it all, Max stayed at Ethan's side, the dog meant to betray him, now the symbol of loyalty itself. Dr. Thompson's paper on their case was accepted into a leading medical journal, crediting Dr. Harper's innovative methods and the remarkable bond between handler and dog. Yet even that couldn't capture the full meaning of what had happened. The truth wasn't found in data or reports. It lived in the quiet moments, when Ethan woke from a nightmare to find Max already there. When healing came not through medicine, but through connection. You know what my grandfather used to say about dogs? Harper told him during a follow-up appointment. God made them just smart enough to love us unconditionally, but not quite smart enough to know we don't always deserve it. Ethan smiled. I think they're smarter than we give them credit for, he said, watching Max charm the hospital staff. They just measure worth differently. As winter approached and Wagner's trial loomed, Ethan finally looked ahead, not back. The past would always be part of their story. Rex's sacrifice, Wagner's betrayal, the poison that nearly killed them, but none of that defined them anymore. What did was what came next, the lives they'd save, the bond that proved stronger than hate, and a loyalty no evil could break. Two brothers, one legacy, and a love that even war couldn't destroy. Sometimes the end of one mission becomes the quiet beginning of another. For Ethan and Max, survival wasn't the final chapter. It was only the start of something much greater. The K-9 Medical Response Initiative, Harper explained, watching Ethan's gaze drift toward the group of officers and dogs playing in the yard. Your experience has inspired quite the departmental transformation. It had grown from the lessons of Ethan and Max's ordeal. Every K-9 unit now trained to recognize signs of poisoning, environmental hazards, and medical distress. Specialized protocols had been created for working dogs, and veterinary partnerships ensured faster, life-saving responses. I hear you're consulting on the program, Ethan said with a grin. At my age, Harper chuckled softly. I'm surprised to find myself pioneering a new field, but then Max rewrote a few chapters of medical understanding. Seems fitting that an old dog like me should still learn some new tricks. The afternoon celebration stretched into the golden hues of early evening. The crisp autumn air carried laughter and stories from every corner of the yard. Officers swapped tales of their K-9 partners' heroics. Children handed out homemade medals, and Jennifer revealed a cake decorated with a startlingly lifelike fondant German shepherd. When the crowd began to thin, Patrick motioned for Ethan to follow him to a quieter corner. He held out a small wooden box carved with the image of a German shepherd on its lid. I wanted you to have this, Patrick said quietly. Inside, nestled in soft velvet, were two identical dog tags, one engraved with Rex's name and service record, the other with Max's. Jennifer's brother is a jeweler, Patrick explained. He made them from their official records. Thought maybe you'd want something to honor them both. Ethan's throat tightened. The weight of the tags in his hand was more than metal. It was memory, sacrifice, and brotherhood. Rex and Max, two halves of the same story. Thank you, he managed, voice rough. This means more than I can ever say. As the last guests departed, Ethan whistled softly. Max broke away from a group of children and trotted to his side, tail wagging, eyes bright. Together, they walked toward Ethan's truck. The first stars peeking through the violet sky. You know what today really celebrates? Ethan said as Patrick approached. Not just survival, transformation. Wagner tried to use Max to destroy me. Instead, he gave me the partner who ended up saving my life and my soul. The drive home was quiet. Max sat proudly in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing at Ethan as though to make sure he was still okay. Back at home, their evening unfolded like ritual. A slow walk around the block, dinner, a shared steak in honor of the day, and a peaceful hour in the living room. Ethan read by lamplight. Max dozed at his feet, one paw resting protectively against his boot. Before bed, Ethan opened the small wooden box again. He placed it beside a framed photograph of Rex and Max's litter, a shrine that had grown over time. Rex's collar, Max's first police badge, their commendations, and now the twin dog tags, gleaming faintly under the lamp's glow. Brothers, Ethan whispered. Max stirred and pressed gently against his leg, as though understanding. One who died saving me, one who lived saving me. Both heroes, in their own way. That night, for the first time since the poisoning, Ethan slept soundly. No nightmares, no cold sweats. When morning came, Max was already awake, watching him with those alert, soulful eyes. Today's a new day, buddy, Ethan said, patting his side. Let's make it count. The crisp fall air filled their lungs as they jogged through the familiar neighborhood. Neighbors waved, children cheered, and Max acknowledged them all with dignified head tilts while never breaking stride. At the park, Ethan unclipped the leash, letting Max roam freely near the pond. His recovery was complete now. The once cautious steps had become confident, powerful strides again. A young mother approached with her daughter, a small girl clutching a folded newspaper clipping. Excuse me, she said shyly. My Sophia's been following your story. She wants to be a K-9 officer one day, because of you and Max. Sophia's eyes widened as she asked, Can I pet your hero dog? Of course, Ethan smiled. Max, come say hello. The German shepherd trotted over, sitting perfectly still beside Ethan. With a simple hand signal, he allowed the girl to approach. She reached out hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, running her fingers through Max's thick coat. He's so soft. she whispered. "And brave," Ethan said warmly. "The bravest I've ever known," Sophia smiled. "That's why I want to work with dogs. They know things people don't." The simplicity of her words struck Ethan deeply. She was right. That was the essence of everything. Max had seen what no human could, acted on instincts born not of training but of love. A few days later, Dr. Harper called with excitement in his voice. "Ethan, the Journal of Veterinary Medicine accepted my paper on Max's case. They're publishing it next month." "Congratulations," Ethan replied, grinning. "Max will be unbearable when he finds out he's famous." Harper laughed. "He's earned it. But that's not all. There's a new therapy dog program at Children's Hospital. Given your experience, I thought you and Max might consider volunteering." Ethan glanced down at Max, who perked up at the mention of Harper's name. "You think he'd be good with kids? I think a dog who overcame an assassin's conditioning out of pure loyalty might have something special to offer," Harper said gently. "Think about it. That evening, fate seemed to make the decision for him. A call came over the radio. A 5-year-old boy with autism had wandered off near Franklin Park, the same place where Ethan had nearly died a year earlier. K9 Unit 7 responding," Ethan said instantly. Night was falling, temperatures dropping fast. Max sniffed the boy's clothing once, then took off through the brush, pulling Ethan along narrow trails and over roots and rocks until they reached a small ravine. There, shivering under a tree, was the missing boy. Max approached slowly, lowering himself to the ground. The boy's small hand reached out, touching the dog's fur, and just like that, the fear was gone. "Hey there, buddy," Ethan said softly. "We've been looking for you. Let's get you home." The boy didn't speak, but he kept his hand tangled in Max's fur as they walked out of the woods. When the parents saw them, relief broke through in sobs and gratitude. The boy, who hadn't spoken to anyone all night, looked up at Ethan and whispered, "Dog friend." Ethan smiled, eyes wet. "Yeah, Max is a very good friend." Later, sitting in the quiet of his truck, he glanced at his partner. "Therapy dog, huh?" he said, scratching Max's ear. "Maybe that's your next calling." The following week, Ethan accepted Harper's offer. Twice a week, they visited the Children's Hospital. Max became a quiet miracle in those sterile halls, sitting beside children who were too sick to speak, playing gently with those who could, offering comfort no medicine could match. Nurses whispered that he seemed to read the kids, knowing who needed space and who needed closeness. "Not their minds," Ethan would say softly. "Their hearts." On the anniversary of their medal ceremony, Ethan and Max visited Dr. Harper. The old man welcomed them into his study filled with manuscripts and fading photographs. "My memoirs," he said with a smile. 60 years of medicine, and one chapter devoted to you two." Max settled by Harper's feet, content. "You know," Harper mused, "when I first saw Max alert to that shell casing, I thought it was pure instinct. But now, I think it was something more. What happened between you two challenges what we think we know about consciousness." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe it's just love refusing to obey orders." Harper nodded, eyes soft. "My grandfather would have called it the soul." Before they left, Harper handed Ethan a small shadow box. Inside, a baby tooth of Max's, a vial of sand from Afghanistan, and a pressed 4-leaf clover. Beneath them, an inscription read, "Brothers in blood, divided by war, reunited through sacrifice." Ethan was speechless. "Thank you, Doc," he finally whispered. "This means everything." On the drive home, Max's head rested on Ethan's arm, his eyes reflecting the evening light. "You know what, buddy?" Ethan said softly. "Wagner thought he was writing our ending. Turns out he only wrote the beginning." The light turned green, and they drove on. Two survivors bound not by fate, but by choice, in a world so often shaped by hate. Their story stood as proof of something far stronger, that love, loyalty, and connection will always find a way.